NelsonJoypad.com bring you another original. It's fucking great.
Seldom has there been a more dark, desolate and hopeless universe than that of Warhammer 40k. It's one of the reasons that I love the lore of this tabletop giant. Space Hulk Ascension is the new entry into the 41st millennium under the Warhammer license, a franchise that spans almost every facet of entertainment, including comics, novels, cosplay, video games, and even a computer animated film. Space Hulk Ascension begins as a rather unassuming turn-based strategy game in the style of the massively successful XCOM series that reacquainted many gamers with the retro style. Space Hulk Ascension is a true video game adaptation of a beloved tabletop game by the same name. I could spend days telling you about the in-depth backstory of the 40k universe, but alas, Full Control, the game's developer, doesn't delve into much detail from the lore. You'll take command of 2 squads of Adeptus Astartes Terminators. Now, these are genetically enhanced super soldiers who have been trained since childhood to be the toughest, most loyal warriors in the Imperium of Man. Your task is to board ancient vessels that have travelled through the Warp. Now that's a realm where the rules of physics don't exist, a realm of insanity, demons, and threats too legion to list. As vessels travel through the warp, which allows faster than light travel, some go missing, some of these vessels will collide with other ill-fated ships and fuse together. Now these amalgamations are known as Space Hulks. The final part of this explanation trifecta are the Tyranids, an alien or xeno race that acts under the influence of a hive mind. These fierce close-quarters enemies lurk in the darkest reaches of Space Hulks, waiting for someone to infect so that they can spread their influence throughout the galaxy. The Gene Stealers are the brunt of the Tyranid army and are a dangerous foe. Armed with a plethora of close-range weapons, they have no problem carving through armour, flesh and bone. In short, they're exactly what you would expect in the tight confines of the Space Hulk environment. The gloomy aesthetic and oppressive, tight level design works perfectly with the lore and the original tabletop game. The atmosphere, as you slowly trudge through the Tyranid-infested corridors, is brilliantly tense, and the knowledge that death could be but seconds away adds weight that is rare in modern games. The gameplay is exhausting. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way, but every single move, every decision, and every route needs to be planned well in advance, otherwise your Terminators are likely to die before you know what's hit you. The missions will require one or both of your squads to take to the field, and I found that the gameplay became like a complicated ballet, beautiful and elegant, yet strong and full of vigour. The objectives in each mission are varied, and while the overall look and feel of each level remains unchanged, the maps do vary. Often in games such as this, it's a simple case of kill everything to win. Space Hulk Ascension does incorporate that into some levels, where victory is achieved by killing a certain amount of enemies, but for the most part, there will be objectives other than simple survival. It's a good shake-up of what can grow to be a rather stale gaming mechanic. I put a hell of a lot of hours into this, and while I needed to take breaks after every couple of missions just to give my mind a rest, I was never reluctant to jump back into the fray. Combat is based on a percentage hit chance and dice rolls. The weapons can overheat and jam, making every encounter far from a sure thing. It can get annoying if one of your Terminators empties his entire bolter as a Tyranid runs towards you, only to hit nothing and get skewered. Losing even one unit can be catastrophic to the mission and immediately puts you on the back foot. It's an excellent way to honour the tabletop game, but in practice it can mean several restarts to finish a level. This is just another example of the punishing way Space Hulk Ascension will slap you in the face and ask you if you want more. Each squad of Terminators consists of 5 troopers, a commander, a heavy weapon specialist, and 3 line soldiers. Each Terminator in Ascension is customizable to an extent, but it lacks the detailed customization of some of its peers. You of course have options to rename your squad if you go for that sort of thing, but with the turnover of recruits that will replace your lost soldiers in the early levels, I found it a bit pointless. As you complete missions, your units will level up and can unlock more powerful weapons to combat the Tyranid threat. In my experience, the hardest and most punishing section of the game is the beginning. It has an incredibly steep learning curve, but if you can learn to show patience and planning, it isn't too hard to get your units leveling up every couple of missions. With a wide range of weapons available to more advanced units, as well as attribute and perk upgrades, once you get into the ebb and flow of this high pressure game, you can really start to hold your own. There are 3 campaigns and 3 chapters, or factions, to choose from. The Ultramarines are excellent range specialists, but do falter in close combat. The Space Wolves are brutal brawlers that are lethal in the tight confines of the Hulk, but can't aim worth a damn. And then there's the Blood Angels, a good all-round force that sits somewhere in between the two. It is a brilliantly versatile mechanic, but I found it almost impossible to complete any level with a full squad as anyone other than the Ultramarines. But then again, that could just be down to my own playstyle. The audio in Space Hulk Ascension is pretty good with the heavy thunk of bolter fire and authentic Terminator voice work, but there's just not much of it. Briefings are provided by simply reading a text box, with only a few token phrases. It feels like it wasn't a priority for full control. I have mixed feelings regarding the animation of the characters. While the clunky and heavy movement of the Terminator fits their walking tank heritage, the Tyranids don't have the fluid grace that I have come to expect from the Warhammer lore. What really stands out for me is the brilliant addition of the helmet cams. When you select a unit, or when a unit is engaged in combat, you'll get a first-person point of view in the top right corner of the screen. It brings the action of the game off the board and throws it in your face. It is perfectly executed and can be easily ignored if you choose not to pay attention, but for me, it was a necessity. Somewhat disappointingly, Space Hulk Ascension has no multiplayer, online or hot seat. I can't help but think this game could have a huge online community if it were just given the chance, but sadly, it isn't so. Space Hulk Ascension is not a game that I would recommend lightly. It is intensely difficult and will not be lenient when it comes to spanking you for making a mistake, but it is a great game. Anyone who is a fan of the Warhammer franchise in any of its forms should definitely look into playing this title, but be warned, there is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter and the laughter of thirsting gods.
Squad deployed.
Space Hulk Ascension may not be a technically impressive game, it doesn't have much in the way of voice acting, charisma or fancy particle effects. What it does have is respect for the source material and truly establishes itself as a Warhammer game. The oppressive and dangerous environments are well designed and make the player really think about tactics and the risk-reward scale. This is one of the best turn-based strategy games that I've played in years, but it's not for the faint-hearted.
Drive them back.